Hi guys, welcome back to EIS Alaska. So we're back in the shop today. The task at hand is to build some risers or standoffs to support our false deck. And so they're basically going to consist of a piece of aluminum strap welded to a length of pipe. This will let us set the height that we need to, because it's going to vary throughout the whole deck depending on where we're at. And then a base plate that will be bolted to the deck. So we need to drill some holes in these. This base plate will be held down by a single 3/8 inch bolt through the center, leg bolt. Then we'll have the pipe welded on here, and then the top one will have 2 bolts that connect the fiberglass stringer to these risers. And then we'll have to have a bolt in the middle right here in order to get a socket through here to tighten this bolt up. We just decided to go with a single bolt. It's just a lot easier as far as the material that we need, and it'll provide plenty of fastening strength and support. We're going to have several of these for each stringer, so we'll just we're not quite sure how many we'll need. So these bolt holes will correspond with the holes that we'll be drilling in the deck board right here. So our spacing is going to be, I believe, 2 5/8 apart is what I came up with. No, 2 7/8. So our spacing will be 2 7/8, and so that's what we need to do, is center to center on these 2 outside bolts is going to be 2 7/8. And then the center one isn't as critical. It just needs to be able to allow us to drop a socket through there. So there will be some playing here, because you don't want the hole so tight that you have to force your bolt in there. You don't have any wiggle room. They just need to be approximate. So I have to make sure that I have clearance for a weld around here. I could go with smaller pipe, but we have a bunch of 1.5 inch already from old railings that we're going to utilize for this project, so we're not buying new material for that. And so that way we can reuse old material that's just kicking around over there in the boneyard anyways. Not sure what size bolts we're going to go with on this. Maybe just 5/16. Still figuring that one out. There's a pretty big cost in it. Okay, now that we have our layout all finalized, it's just time to rinse and repeat. Just a few to go. Okay guys, so that's a lot of holes. Realistically, we're not going to lay these all out by hand and drill them individually. That wouldn't make a lot of sense. We'd be here for a while. I think we're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 of these little stanchions or standoffs or risers or whatever you want to call them. We need to make sure that our deck is very secure and held down good. So to speed things up, we're going to make a little jig. That'll help us just drop these into place, just drill them out. The repeatability will be excellent. We'll have the exact same bolt pattern every time, and it just makes it easy and really no chance for error. Okay, we'll just take some of this scrap, make up a simple jig. Probably something just like that. Just weld these up real quick. Then we can clamp this in place, position it, clamp it, and then all we got to do is just slide in our next piece and drill it. They'll all come out the same. No measuring, no goofing around. Have nice accurate results, and we'll get these knocked out in no time. Got our jig made. Nothing fancy at all. Just a couple of pieces of scrap welded together. We didn't even cut anything. Just use one of our pieces. Get the distance, and it's nothing fancy at all. So we cut all these blanks just on our chop saw. I just had a block that I just butt the edge up against and cut. So these are all relatively the same, but I just used this factory edge on both sides, and that's what I'll that's what I just used to line up the jig and just welded it together. So we'll just insert it that way, and a couple of clamps. Let's use this other one that we already did. Go ahead and get it located here. This will save me a ton of time in the long run. We'll drill a hole down in the bottom to let any out, especially with the hole in the top that we need to have to access the lag bolt and secure it to the deck. What'll happen if you don't put a hole in that, if that fills up with water, then it'll freeze and it'll split the pipe. So we're just getting ready to lay out a bolt pattern on an aluminum strip. We're going to use that to drill the holes in our deck stringers. So basically we need to replicate this hole pattern right here, and instead of just measuring each and every hole, drilling it, measuring to the next one, so on and so forth, we're just going to drill out that hole pattern in a long piece of strap like that. It's the same stuff that we're using for our stanchions, and so when we're done we'll be able to cut it up and use it for the rest of the deck. But it's just going to allow us to accurately mark all the holes on our fiberglass stanchions, or excuse me, the fiberglass stringers that Matt and Tristan are making. So whenever you're laying something out, the same pattern over and over again, you know, you can certainly just measure one hole and mark it, and then measure to the next hole and mark it, and so on and so forth, and keep going. But the problem is that you get compounding error like that. So if you're off a 32nd on your first hole and a 32nd on the next hole, by the time you do 32 holes, you're an inch off. That's significant. So that's a problem with doing it that way, is the compounding error. The other thing you could do is just figure out each measurement on paper and write it down, so you're measuring off the end, and then you have more accuracy because your only error is going to be on each hole. So if you're off a 16th here and you're off a 16th there, you know, these two are still going to be the same, and you don't get that compounding error. So the nice thing about this that I like is that I can lay out everything, and then I just use a measure tool and I can come off the end here, and I'll just start at the very beginning and I'll get my measurement for my first hole, and then I can get my measurement for my next hole, and every time it's just giving it to the end of the stick, and so I can just hook my tape measure on there and get that measurement, and so it just makes it a lot faster and easier for me. This piece of strap is 12 foot. We're going to cut it in half, or whatever the length is on this that I need, and start getting these holes laid out and drilled. We're going to be trying to drop these onto the big beams underneath the deck. They're huge beams. They're like 4x6, and so we know the location of most of them, and most likely we can hit a lot of them, and so we'll just run in like a 4-inch bolt, 3/8 by 4-inch leg bolt, and that's going to be plenty to hold this down. There's going to be a lot of these when we're done, so I'm not too worried about them tearing out individually or anything. So you'll notice this larger hole right here, and this represents a hole that will be drilled in the center of each one of these paths right here, and that's going to allow us to put a socket with an extension through there all the way down through the tube, and anchor a leg bolt into the deck through the bottom plate. It's the best way to go about this for us, as opposed to like having a longer strap with 2 bolts, or a pad with maybe 4 screws. It'll just be a lot more efficient for us that way, less hardware. So we'll just get the overall length of this, which looks like it's 73 and 21/64, so 73 3/8, and we'll cut the strap down to size and start getting these holes laid out.
Well folks, it seems we've gone from a fiberglass shop to a metal shop. So you can see our stringers are all lined out over here. We went over those in some detail yesterday. Now we're working on creating the stanchions, which are the little support feet that go underneath.
Yeah. Whoa. Got our trip lines everywhere.
Yeah, you guys can't see them, but there's a grid of
Apparently we can't see them either because we keep tripping on them.
So that was just to line up our stuff.
So these are all our deck stringers. We just kind of made a storyboard here. I think that's what the framers call them, carpenters. This is our bolt pattern for our boards. So this is going to let us accurately lay this out every time. Pull the string line. We lined up our very first board off of here because that's kind of the important thing, is to get the gap between here, the hatch, and the board, so you can take these off. It's got a slight angle to them. So we got our very first one lined up and drilled the hole right there. And then this just allows us to continue on. So the blue holes are where boards will go, the closer dimension here, which is 2.5, and then this other one is 3 3/8, and the red dot represents where a stanchion will be, not necessarily every one. So for instance, we have one here at the end, and then we're skipping about 3, and then one in the middle, and then one here again, and that seems to be plenty of support. That's like 20 inches, and so yeah, so that'll allow us to line everything up really accurately. And then and then this is what our stanchions will look like. because the deck has a lot of crown right here, we just take an angle finder and we put our speed square off of here, and then we use our angle finder to get the angle here. Take the angle finder over to our handy dandy compound miter saw. We're just tacking it onto a little square plate. The top is straight, it's a 90, and it gets this plate, which corresponds to this. So the little center hole is where we use a hole saw to open this up after it's welded on, and then that's going to allow us to drop a leg bolt through the bottom and into the deck. So yeah, so this is like our first one. It's all finished. An access hole so we can drop a leg bolt through there, and there's enough room to get the socket and extension through. And then just like this, you can see that this has some flex to it, some deflection, but this is also like, that's almost 7 foot span right there. So if we put in this very first one, goes in about right there. You can see how nice that matches up. Suddenly there is no deflection, and if we stand right here, there's also like,
There's nothing.
there's no deflection.
Yeah.
So we'll put a stanchion here. That's what I'm making right now. Just tack it together. We'll have one here, we'll have one here, we'll have one over there. Our next stringer will be right here. Full size boards that run along there. These are little shorties that go forward. This will probably just have 3. I don't think there's any reason to put more.
Yeah, that'll be plenty.
Yeah, and then as you bolt all this stuff together, you know, this will have a center stringer, so as you bolt these two together, this one complements that one complements that one.
It all just gets
The
tied
whole thing.
together
Yeah.
to one solid structure.
Yep. The only thing that would have been nice to do would have been to stagger these seams, but we can't just because the way the material works out. To be honest, the stuff was expensive, and this is maximizing our material with like 0 waste almost. Like our 12-foot boards, our 2x6s, there'll be like 0 cutoff on them other than just to trim the ends. And these ones, you know, we do have some left over, but all those pieces we'll be able to use in spots like in the very aft where we just have to do a little fill in, places like that. That next one's ready for you to drill out there, T, if it's cooled off a bit.
Right over there. Yeah, so I'm just here at the grinding station. These are the raw ones. Dad just whacked them with a compound saw over there, same as these, and then he drilled them out at home on the drill press, and I'm just rounding off the corners and cleaning the face up, getting the oxidation off of it. Same with these. Dad's over there welding pieces together.
Two-shot deal.
Not bad.
Yeah. I gotta make sure that this cross piece goes in the same direction as the angle, because if I put it like that, then that is not gonna work on the deck very well.
Yeah, a bit awkward.
And so we'll make sure that we orient that correctly, and all will be good in this world. So we're drilling this hole after because there's not a whole lot of, this doesn't actually cover the whole pipe, so We didn't want to open up that hole and then just have a tiny bit of meat on each side here. And then I'm just eyeballing it here. So this worked out really good. The way that we originally designed this, we were going to have the stanchions underneath each board, but that only left us 2.5 inches between these holes. And by the time we account for the weld on the underside of this, there's like really no room for a washer and a nut. So we just kind of altered it, and we ended up, there'll be a board on one hole this way, and then a board on this hole this way. And that gives about 3 3/8 in between the holes. So it gives us almost an extra inch of room right there.
Yeah, nice.
To work with. And so there's plenty of room to put our hardware there now, and it works out great. So I'm happy about that. Quick zip there. You can see we got plenty of room for a washer and a nut in there. If we'd gone the other way, it would have been right up against that weld. We probably would have had to come in here and cup all those out. Just a quick zip around there. Come back to the top where I tacked it. Zip over the top. So on all these, we will be drilling a hole in the bottom of these too, so in case they do get water inside, they don't freeze and split the pipe, because that will happen, and it's very annoying. And the other thing too is that you may or may not be able to see that, but we'll just give this a little tap with the hammer up. Whenever you weld something, the weld shrinks and it'll pull your metal, and you can see that it's kind of put a little bit of a curve on that now. So just a quick little tap with the hammer, that face will be straight again. Nice and easy. These are actually like really easy to make.
Yeah.
A lot, they're quicker than I thought they would be.
Mm-hmm.
Like as far as determining the angle and everything, it's super easy. So that's that for this one. We'll let this cool off, send it over to the hole saw guy.
Hey.
Hey.
What you got there?
So I got one of these
Stanchions.
What?
Stanchion.
Yeah. I got one of these stanchions from Dad. So we did one already, but like the first one's always the test one, you know. So now we've actually gotten a good process set up. So what we do is we get this here and we clamp it on nice and tight so that we have some good stability. There we go. That's not going anywhere. Now we get our 1/4 inch drill bit. And we drill out this hole, because otherwise the first one we didn't drill out that hole bigger, so it was like getting caught on this
Stub.
The busted bit. It's
Yeah.
like pretty much just a guide.
Our pilot bit busted off and
And so it was getting kind of gummy on there, so
friction welded into the hole.
yeah. So now we got the process figured out better. Just gonna do that. Get that hole bigger.
That hole Dad drilled there was a little bit under 1/4 inch, so that's why the guide doesn't fit perfectly. It's what we had at home.
And Just got our hole saw back on here. And this was kind of a struggle on the last one for that reason. And also no lubrication. So it was like seizing up a lot.
What kind of lubrication you got?
Just some soapy water.
Nice. Keep your cutter cool.
Yeah. I just do, well, advice from my mentor here, to do like a little like rolling motion kind of.
PPE is important.
Oh.
Glasses and the hearing protection.
Ugh. Struggle.
You're filling me out.
And there we go. So now there's the hole there. And that's it.
Yep. Now our socket, this is just a 1/2 inch, so it's not the actual one. Be able to reach down there, tighten our leg bolt, and bada book, bada boom. Extract the little plug.
Struggling to anyways.
Yeah. Work in progress. Nice. Well done.
Thank you.
So I just want to show you guys how much slope the deck really has now that our stringer there is in final position. I think we measured a 4-inch drop from the center up in the center of the boat there where the mast is.
Yeah, I've got about 4, well, just shy of 4.
4 inches
3
up there.
3/4.
And out here it is not to the very end, but 7 1/8.
7 1/8.
So that's a 3-inch drop.
Yeah. And when you step back, you can really see the crown.
Yeah.
And so what happens is you want a crown on your deck to help shed water into your scuppers, which are just where these blue foam blocks are, by the way. We just have them plugged to keep it warmer in here now. It's cold out. It keeps the air from blowing in when you're working. So you need crown on a deck to shed water. But on a false deck, crown doesn't do anything for you because you have, you know, spaces in between your boards and the water runs through and it'll pile up underneath the deck and get evacuated through the scuppers. People may argue that it does help on a false deck, but I don't really think that it does.
The boat's constantly rolling
number
back
one,
and forth.
the deck is way up here and you have no scuppers up here. And so it's not going to evacuate through anything. The water's just going to pile up there anyways.
Yep.
It's going to go through the scuppers. It'll drop right through that deck in a heartbeat. So you do need crown on your deck, but this deck has a lot of crown on it. And the thing is, it's uncomfortable when you're walking here, particularly when you're walking, you know, from the center of the boat to one side or the other, and then the boat rolls that way. Now you've gone from a slope like this to a slope like that, and it's very slippery, especially on this deck, and you're kind of like almost being propelled downhill. So it can kind of make it a more dangerous situation. So having a nice flat false deck really does make that more enjoyable and safer moving back and forth.
Mm-hmm. The other nice thing about a false deck too is when you're tanking down on crab, water is flowing out of your hold constantly, so it'll just come up over the coaming and go over your deck instead of over your feet, I guess,
Yeah.
and other stuff.
It'll be
whatever's on
gone
deck.
within the first board or two, if
Yeah.
even that much, and it'll just be underneath the deck flowing out through your scuppers.
The other thing, I guess we didn't really mention before, but with these stringers, it's really nice because all you have is a single leg going down. If we were to use those rough cut timber or whatever, it'd be just a tapered piece of wood going all the way across to support
Yep.
all your boards. So it'd block any scum or trap anything that might get under there over time, and yeah, it gets kind of nasty.
Yep.
Now we just have these single little legs here. I'm gonna put a squirt of 5200 under them, and yeah, should be
Laying
nice and
down.
clean.
Yeah, it'll
As
be
clean
tidy.
as anything, anyways.
Yeah.
Like it'll get a little grimy over time, but nothing like what a wood trap will do.
And that's kind of a typical installation, is just some kind of riser or stanchion that attaches to a stringer. If a guy used like angle on a steel boat, you'd just take a piece of angle and you'd use that to come up and join your stringer going across to your deck. And so this is a pretty typical installation like this. And you know, with two of them in there, you can see that it's more than adequate.
Yeah, awesome.
Gonna be good.
Yeah, we're excited.
Very much so. So on to the next one for me.